Hello again, everybody. I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast,
Alex.
Joel.
Oh.
What?
Joel. I said Joel.
You said Alex.
I said Joel. Yeah. I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
This is our podcast,
Joel.
Alex.
Why are you saying Alex?
I'm saying Joel. What are you talking about?
Okay, anyway. Welcome to the 8th episode of
That's
our
right.
podcast.
Yep.
We're here in the car on our way to Katie's house, and Joel is in the car with us. Say hi, Joel. Yep, that's what I expected. And Shelby will be joining us somewhat in the near future.
Probably like 45 minutes.
Like 45 minutes, so...
This will go on that long, right?
Yeah, we actually have some additional content in addition to usual, because
Right.
we wanted to make this a longer episode.
So we'll be able to go on and on for several hours. We'll probably pause in the middle when we get to Shelby's.
That sounds reasonable.
But so this is episode 8.1.
Episode 8, part 1.
Part 1, and then we'll have episode 8, part 2, pretty much immediately following this, I guess.
I mean, for the listeners, all of the episodes are, I guess if you're listening like each week, then it's not like one after the other, but...
I don't know, maybe we should, when we put them up, maybe we should release them, every week.
We should release them all the ones we have at once, and then just whenever we make new ones, we release them. Or we could do that, I mean.
So up to this point, if we do that, definitely they've just listened
One
to all
after
of
the
them
other, right.
back to back to back, because how could anyone
they've
stop
just spent
listening
7
to
to
this?
8 hours of their time in a row listening to us.
Of course. Don't know why you wouldn't do that. It's the most sensible way to listen to a podcast.
Yes. Okay, so first off, weekly reminder that Nathan does not owe me $1.
That's right.
That is all. Sports update. The Sixers lost their series in 7 games
To some Canadians
to the Toronto Raptors. So
who are from Canada.
also the Portland won their series, which was somewhat surprising. They were
How embarrassing is it to lose to Canadians?
It's not that embarrassing. Most of the players are not Canadian.
Yeah, but some of them are, right?
I don't know.
And that's pretty embarrassing.
Anyway, so the Western Conference Finals is now Golden State versus Portland.
Right?
And Golden State easily beat Portland in the first game of that series. And then the second of the Eastern Conference Finals is Milwaukee versus Toronto. And Milwaukee won a close first game.
Beat the Canadians, most importantly.
Yes. So, yeah, did you want to add anything about hockey or any other sports?
I haven't been paying attention to any sports really. I knew about Milwaukee because we were talking about that last night at dinner, but that's about it.
The Phillies are doing well. Sorry to tell you that, Joel, but they have been winning. Well, they lost the last 2 games, but they're like 25-19 or something now.
That doesn't seem that great.
Well, it's their first place in their division, so
Really?
it's really all that matters. At least they were recently. Maybe I'll look since we have all this time.
Everybody in baseball just like almost 500 all the time.
No, but there's only 5 teams in a division, so saying they're first place in their division is
Not that impressive.
It's somewhat impressive because their division's actually decent this year.
If 25-19 is the best record, they're not that decent, right?
Well, the teams in their division all have to play each other several times.
Right.
So if your division is good, then you might not have terrific records. You might, because you'll be losing to each other all the time. Anyway,
Do you think the Phillies are going to contend for the World Series this year?
Probably not, but they're on the upswing at least. I think they will make the playoffs.
All right,
Let's see. Here we have the Phillies are 24-19.
It's even worse.
But they are first in their division. And
Who else is in their division?
Atlanta, the Mets, the Washington Nationals, and
A little league team.
Miami. What?
4 little league teams.
Yeah, it turns out.
What did you say?
And Miami. It turns out their division's
Well, yeah,
actually
I wasn't
not.
listening to any of the other ones either.
What?
What were all of the things you said?
Most of the division's actually not doing that well.
No, the teams.
Atlanta, New York, Washington, Miami.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, I have to lean forward so you can hear me.
That's not super, I don't know, that's not super significant to me.
Okay.
I don't really know anything about baseball.
Their division.
I know about baseball, just don't know about Major League Baseball.
Their division's not doing that well this year.
They're all
The Phillies have
bad.
1, 2, 3. They have a better record than everyone except for 3 other teams in the what is it called? ALNL league. And then in the
Everybody? MLB?
No, league meaning like National League. It's like conference.
So they're better than all of the teams except for 3.
So they're better than 4 out of the 5 teams in their division, them being the 5th team.
So they're better than all the teams in their division.
Correct. They're better than all the 4 other teams in their division. They're better than 3 of the 5 teams in the Central Division and 3 of the 5 teams in the West Division.
Okay.
Anyway, that's how baseball's going.
You know what that sound means? It's time to stop talking about baseball.
Yes. Probably should have done that much sooner.
Yep.
So, all right. What did you want to do first here?
Well, let's. What we can do is just list all the things that we're planning on doing, so that you can decide in advance whether or not you want to listen to this episode. As a listener / viewer,
Right.
You can make an informed decision. So there are a few different topics that we'll cover today. Alex, give us an overview.
Well, the first one is another movie. We didn't really like. We listened to the first half of the last movie, which we made the last podcast, and we didn't really like it. So we want to do another movie, which is it's like John Wick, but instead of John Wick like going on a rampage and killing people, he kills a bunch of seagulls. And maybe it's not John Wick; it's like some other guy.
Yeah, it's somebody else.
It's
kind of like John Wick.
Right. Yeah, just like John Wick, but he kills a bunch of seagulls because a seagull stole his child's hot dog or something equally trivial like that.
Right.
And then we wanted to do a movie review. So
a couple, right?
What?
We watched 2 movies for this, right? Or
sure. I mean,
okay.
I originally thought we were only going to do the one, but we can do 2. So
we'll start with the one and see how we like it.
So last night we watched The Big Short, and then the night before that we watched Iron Man 2. So we can discuss and review both of those movies. So
or maybe just one if we get bored.
Or maybe just one. And then, did we want to do a product review? I don't know if we ever.
We never decided on a product, so we can talk about what product we might want to review, or whether we even want to do that. That's
right.
I don't know.
Okay, we can discuss that later.
Yeah.
Well, if we have time. I can't think of anything else. Can you think of anything else that we mentioned?
I mean, that's like 2 different things, right?
That's
doing a movie and doing a movie review.
Yeah, unless we wanted to do 2 movie reviews and also the product review. So 2 things and then 2 maybe other things.
All right.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast,
Joel.
Alex. Wait
what?
a minute.
Are you kidding me?
Sorry. I was really hoping you would say Joel right there.
Well, I did because that's the name of the podcast.
Joel. All right. So, yeah. So in the time since we ended part 1, Shelby has joined us.
Say hi,
Shelby.
Hello.
And we also decided that our movie was stupid. We didn't really have.
Shelby, just to recap it for you, have you seen John Wick?
No, but I've seen the trailers for it.
So you know what John Wick is about?
Kind of.
Our movie was like that, but instead of killing a bunch of people, he kills seagulls.
Okay.
And that's it. And we decided that there really wasn't much more to talk about beyond that.
All right.
We didn't know where else to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, we can move on to the next portion of our podcast.
Which is
Traffic
movie.
lights.
What?
What?
Remember you said you wanted to talk about that?
Oh, yeah, we can talk about that. What's up with those traffic lights,
Okay,
guys?
so first of all, first
you ever
question
been
is...
at a traffic light and it's green and the people ahead of you just aren't going? Isn't that crazy?
Okay, so the first question is, do you call them traffic lights or stoplights? Or are they interchangeable?
Traffic signals.
Traffic signals.
Stop signals.
Stop
actually.
signals.
I call them stoplights.
Stoplights.
I would say stoplight. I don't think I would say traffic light casually, but I am not offended by the use of traffic light, unlike some other regional.
Right. I feel the same way, except kind of... So I say traffic light, but I'm not, like, offended by any of the other... They all seem... I've heard them all. Your phone fell. Now it's back.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex. And this is our podcast, Alex.
Nice.
All right. Okay. I don't really think we need to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Never mind.
Okay, so the next portion is our movie review.
So we watched The Big Short last night with Steve Carell and Christian Bale and some other...
Ryan Gosling and Brad Pitt.
There were probably some other actors
Those
as well,
are the main four, yeah. So, Joel, have you ever seen the movie? The Big Short? Okay. Shelby, have you ever seen it?
I don't think so.
It's about the 2008 housing market collapse.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it, but it's been recommended to me several times.
So, okay.
I will recommend it to you again.
Okay.
So, just a
thought it
quick
was pretty
recap
good.
of the
Yeah.
movie. So, basically, there's these people who figure out there's like
Sorry.
three groups.
Why are we laughing at that?
Because he just started with "there are these people" and then just paused, and I'm like,
There's
it's
people,
really
the
informative.
There's these three groups of people who figure out that the housing market is going to collapse, and what they realize is that there's these things called, what are they called? Mortgage bonds, and it's basically just like thousands of mortgages all bundled together, and for years they've been very, very safe bets, like.
Because everybody is paying their mortgages,
Right.
and like, what could possibly go wrong?
Right, so housing has always been a very safe thing to invest in. So what these people each realize is that these housing bonds have become worse and worse, as in the mortgages in them have become riskier and riskier. Like, they've been given to people with lower credit scores and adjustable rates and all this stuff that makes these people realize that it's likely that at some point around 2007, a lot of people are going to start defaulting on their mortgages, and these mortgage bonds are going to become worthless. And so what these people do is they short them, which means that they basically bet against these bonds. Like, basically they say, we'll pay you monthly fees until these bonds fail. And of course,
you pay us a bunch of money.
right, and then you pay us a bunch of money. And of course the banks are more than happy to give them this, because everyone else except for these groups of people thinks that housing is a very safe market and it's like never going to collapse. So basically what happens is the banks, so in 2007 all of these mortgages start being defaulted on, but the banks still price the swaps, which are what they bought, at the same price, so they can't like sell them for more money, and they still have to pay the fees.
So what was happening, I think at that point, was like what they said was going to happen was happening, but all the banks were like, yeah, but we're not gonna like give you any money for it.
Right. So there's these agencies called rating agencies, which their job is to assess how good these bonds are and rate them. And the what the movie showed is that the rating agencies basically just give the banks whatever rating they want on the bonds, regardless of how good the actual bond is. Because if not, then they'll just go to their competitor and they won't make any money. So what happens is the rating agencies continue to rate these bonds well because the banks wanted them to. And what happened is basically the banks bought a bunch of swaps or sold their obligation or whatever, basically got into a position where it was beneficial for them for the swaps to become paid off, and then they became paid off, and these people made boatloads of money. So that's a summary of the movie. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes on in between, but that's like the main points. So, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I didn't fully grasp all of the like financial details, so I can't like fact check all the things you were saying, but like the general ideas are all correct there.
Right.
That's just kind of what was going on there.
So do you want to give your initial impressions?
Yeah, so my initial, I was kind of thinking throughout this movie, isn't it kind of stupid that people with all this money were like betting the money through banks, like in a very like established way, just placing bets basically on what the economy was going to do, and then the economy, like they were betting on the economy just becoming garbage, and then they would make a bunch of money.
Right.
So like that scenario for one is just kind of like ridiculous to me to think of, but just in general, like banking and like the stock market and everything, it's just like having money in those fields will just get you more money, and you didn't really do anything. Right, like you just kind of got some interest, and if you were smart, you got interest better than like just the average market. And then I guess some people somewhere are losing money too, but you don't really hear about that. It's just always like millionaires and their hedge funds, and I don't know what else. It's kind of a strange concept.
So yeah. So what did you think of the movie overall?
Good.
Good movie?
It was good.
What criticisms did you have of the movie?
There were a few, actually it was, this is maybe something to add to your summary. There were a few instances where they had well-known actors or
celebrities.
Yeah, some sort of celebrity playing themselves basically, and explaining the financial concepts in layman's terms, or maybe closer to layman's terms. As somebody without a lot of background in economics, like I said, I wasn't like just the first time watching through the movie, I wasn't grasping all of the intricacies that are present in that field. Maybe that's part of why I think it's just such a weird thing, right? But I don't know. I think they could have broken it down a little bit better. Maybe that's not their target audience. Probably that's not their target audience, but just kind of me as a fairly well-educated but not specialized in economics person, I think that was maybe a part of the movie I found to be a little bit lacking.
So I actually agree. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I disagree with you in that I think you are their target audience. Like, regular people are their target audience, and that's why they had those like famous people come in and do the explanations.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't mean to say like they weren't at all targeting me as just a regular person, but I mean, I think maybe you would expect the people who are interested in picking that movie, they would be like maybe somebody who did study a little bit of economics
Right.
or
It sounds like they were buying puts on the bond market. They were trading options.
Yeah, they were buying swaps. is the
these
term
are
they use.
these are all words that I have heard of, but I have no idea what they are, and that's
Well-
what I think the movie kind of didn't do well.
Buying puts is like a contract. So someone sells a put option, and in that option, it's like a contract that you get to sell X amount of shares at a strike price.
Yep.
So if you think the value of the stock is going to go down, then you buy like this contract to sell it at
At a higher
certain price. And then
Right.
someone sells that, and then if its price goes down, you're selling it for profit.
So that's
Right.
what they were talking about with Mike Baum at the end. He needed to sell
Right.
at that price before selling was just completely worthless and
Right.
everybody was underwater. That contract wouldn't matter.
Right. So so Joel's right. So you like basically agree that you can sell them X shares at the current market price usually, and then you pay a fee until you actually execute the sell, and then if it goes down, then you make a lot of money on it. So that's you're right. That's exactly what they were doing. So this is my second time seeing the movie, and I felt the same way you did the first time, where I was
Yeah.
like, I understood some of this, and I also didn't understand some of this.
Right.
So I actually understood more watching it a second time through.
I think that would be helpful. Also, just like reading a Wikipedia page about the words they were using would
Right.
probably be like more than enough to get the level of understanding they were,
Right.
missing.
Yeah, so I agree that it was kind of confusing, and I feel like they probably knew that it was kind of confusing, but
Yeah.
as long as they at the very least they did a good job of like explaining the consequences of what was happening.
Right.
So even if you didn't understand like why something was happening, they would at least tell you like, oh no, that means that I'll lose all my money or something.
Yeah, I knew what the stakes were
Right,
all
exactly,
along. I just
exactly.
didn't like the.
And that's probably the most important part to the casual viewer.
Yeah, so I mean, like sitting there and watching it, I was like entertained throughout.
Right.
It wasn't. I was just totally lost. It's just the details were a bit beyond me on a first watching.
One thing that I thought was interesting watching it the second time through that I didn't really notice the first time through is that there's not a ton of plot. Like,
Yeah.
you start out with all these, meet all the characters and you see how they discovered, this issue.
Right.
And then there's, a middle part where, they do some research and find out, wow, this is actually, a thing.
Right.
And, people are stupid and not seeing it. And everyone's trying to cover it up. And then there's the end when it pays off.
Right.
And it's not really that much actual plot other than that. It's just kind of, they do a lot of, exposition and explaining stuff and investigation and things like that.
I think that kind of fits though, because there wasn't a whole lead up to. This is a real world event. This happened.
Yeah.
And they just kind of showed what happened
Right.
and what some people got out of it. And also, I thought it was really interesting. At the end, they said, that one single banker went to jail for it, and everybody else just kind of made their money, and then the banks got bailed out, and
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it necessarily was bad because of that. There was no point where I was like, wow, I'm so bored because there's no plot.
right. It's just interesting to.
Right. It's just interesting to know,
Investigate a
to
little
think
deeper,
about
yeah.
in retrospect.
What year did that movie come out?
2015.
Okay, so given that it was a movie that was released in 2015, probably made in 2013, 2014.
It's actually based on a book, so.
Based on, sure. But they, it's about events from 2006 to 2008.
Right. Actually, 2005 it starts, but yeah.
Yeah, 2005 to 2008. So, and this is in the real world, just like on Wall Street, you know?
Right.
Real places that it's not, you know. I thought it was very interesting, and this is just a general comment about movies that take place in the past, that they had all of the like cars and clothes and phones and everything correct.
Right.
You know, there's not like any background shots of like modern stuff going on while
Right.
there's, you know, it's interesting the amount
Yeah.
of detail that you have to put into a movie like that.
Right, and it's especially with like a movie like this that takes place like 10 years ago.
Right.
It's like there's most things are fine, and especially they're shooting in like big cities like New York and stuff.
Right.
It's like you have to pay very close attention to what things you have to change. Like,
Yeah.
for the most part, everything's the same, but you know, like you said, the phones,
Right.
and you know, cars. You have to make sure that you're not accidentally putting in something from 3 years later or whatever.
Right, because everybody knows what that time was like. Like you said, it was only 10 years ago. We were
Right.
all around then.
Exactly.
We saw what stuff was like 10 years ago.
Right.
Better not screw that up.
One thing that I really liked about the movie was the whole fourth wall tone it had. So like
Yeah.
it had the guy who was narrating, which was one of the characters.
Right.
But they also had like you mentioned, the celebrities who would just talk to you basically, and the narrator would basically mention that the celebrities were here to explain these things to you.
Right.
And not only that, but they also at times the characters would just look right at the camera and explain something.
Yeah. And those parts are helpful.
Right.
But you can't have just that, or it's
Right. I think-
just an economics lecture.
I think they did a good job with that. Like,
Yeah.
It was helpful to explain things, and I kind of liked like it went along with the tone of the movie.
It was pretty well balanced.
Right.
Oh, what else did I think when I was watching that? I don't know. It was interesting how they make the audience empathize with all these really rich bank guys.
Right. I mean, the thing is, the antagonists of the movie is the big banks that are screwing people.
Right.
Clearly. But like, you would think that like if that's the case, then the protagonists would be like, poor people, or at least a specific like poor family or group of poor people. It's really just these other wealthy bankers
Right.
that you come to like.
Right.
And I think where you see they actually did a really good job of that was with Steve Carell's group of people.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of show them as being like not typical Wall Street types. They're kind of irreverent.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a
Skeptical.
couple guys that you could,
Right.
if they were in some other industry, maybe they could be your coworkers. You
Right,
know,
exactly.
they're not all like,
Like, maybe they're assholes a little bit, but at least like, they're down to earth and they're not trying to screw people over.
yeah. So,
And actually, that leads into another line that I thought was interesting, which was when Steve Carell's talking. He said this actually a couple times, where he was like, "When has it ever like been profitable, like sustainably profitable to screw people over?"
yeah.
And for me, I was kind of like, well, I mean, like it's definitely profitable to do that. Like,
Right.
that seems like a lot of what.
That just happens all
Not to
the
be
time.
cynical, but that's basically what this entire movie's about, is how these people just defrauded the American people and got away with it.
Right.
So,
at least you know, there's some people that are thinking that way,
Yeah.
even within the big banks and stuff.
Right. Did you have any final thoughts, or do you want to just give it a rating?
I rate it.
Rate it out of 5 stars.
Out of 5 stars, I give it 3.5 stars for being enjoyable, but missing a little bit of information that isn't crucial, but I would still kind of like to have even after.
I'll give
just
it
one
4
viewing.
stars.
All right.
My only, I don't know. My reservation is actually the plot thing. Like,
Yeah.
I was never like, it wasn't like I was never bored, but I was never like, wow, this part's like, it was never a part where I was like, this part's so important, I have to be here for it. I don't know. Like, if I was watching this movie in the theater, I wouldn't really have had an issue getting up and going to the bathroom at any point in this movie.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so there you go, folks. 7.5 out of 10 on the Alex and Alex scale.
All right.
By the way, how did you
cool.
watch the movie without eyes?
I just listened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, do you want to review the other movie?
Yeah, because we haven't really done anything else. Let's
sure.
let's move on to Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
Shelby, have you seen Iron Man 2?
I have. It's been a long time. Is that the one where his army buddy gets a suit?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so quick plot recap of Iron Man 2. So Iron Man is, riding high from the end of Iron Man 1 where he announced he was Iron Man, and now you can see that he's hugely popular and he's doing a good job, keeping the world safe, using the Iron Man suit, and he's taking lots and lots of credit for it and continuing to make lots and lots of money and live the Tony Stark life.
Right.
And so the bad guy in this movie is Ivan Vanko. Actually, he's just one of the bad guys. But in the beginning, his dad, turns out, you find out this out later in the movie, but his dad worked with Tony Stark, but then was later deported because he had malicious intent, I believe. I don't fully remember.
I think
you
you
wanted
mean
to-
Howard Stark.
You do mean Howard Stark, and
I do. What did I say?
Tony.
Oh yeah, Howard Stark. Thank you, Joel.
So Anton Vanko and Howard Stark made the arc reactor technology, and Vanko wanted to sell it and make
That's right.
money, and Howard was like, "This is, we just need to."
Dangerous.
Was it dangerous? I thought he was just being like,
He
philanthropic.
had some noble motives. Either he thought it was dangerous,
Yeah,
which it was, because in Iron Man 1 they threatened to blow up. Wait, was that Iron Man 1? Or is that something else?
I might be
thinking of Batman. Anyway,
Basically,
You are thinking of Batman.
yeah, I am thinking of Batman. But okay, Howard. Yeah. Anyway, he was deported because
there was a disagreement, and Howard Stark got rid of Vanko, and then Vanko went to Siberia, and then his son Ivan got real grumpy with the Starks, and so that's something to
Winterfell.
yeah. So Ivan built like a small arc reactor to power these electric whips that he built. And then he went to Monaco to confront Tony Stark, who was also in Monaco at the time, doing a Formula One race.
I believe his character in the comics is called Whiplash.
Whiplash, that's right. So
It does make sense.
So they have a fight, and Tony wins and puts the guy in jail. Also side plot. While this is going on, you find out that Tony's dying from the thing in his
Palladium.
chest. Right, so that it's powered by a palladium core, and having palladium in your chest will, poison you over time.
In the MCU.
So
Also, probably in real life, I don't really know a lot about Palladium.
yeah, so he's slowly dying
Reasonable
throughout
to
this. And
think that it
he's
would.
becoming increasingly reckless also as a result. And so anyway, he puts this guy in jail, and then
Goes back to partying.
right, he goes back to partying. Meanwhile,
Colonel Rhodes has been defending him to keep the Iron Man suits private. but,
right, because the government is trying to take the suits.
Right, the other
from
army guys are like, "Come on, we gotta get this tech."
Right, and so he shows up. So Colonel Rhodes shows up at Tony's house, and he's completely wasted in the Iron Man suit for his birthday, having his birthday party, and being very reckless. And Colonel Rhodes just gets fed up, and he puts on one of the other suits that Tony has, and fights Tony, to try and get him to give up the suit. And
There's not really a winner, but
right, they create a big explosion, and so Tony keeps his suit, but Colonel Rhodes leaves with the other suit and takes it, and it's now in possession of the army. Okay. Anyway, meanwhile, while this is going on, Tony's competitor, his name's Justin Hammer. He has broken Ivan out of jail, made it look like he's dead, so that he can come build Iron Man suits for him. And Ivan agrees to build the suits. For Hammer. So then Hammer gets called in because he's a weapons salesman. He sells weapons to upgrade the Iron Man suit that Colonel Rhodes took. And so he basically sells them a bunch of guns and other missiles that they put on the other suit, which is now the War Machine suit. So also while that's going on, then so S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up, and they tell Tony that he has to. Nick Fury shows up with S.H.I.E.L.D. and he tells Tony that he has to basically figure out how to, fix the thing in his chest. That's what they tell him, right? Okay.
yeah. It's been 2 days.
I mean, I don't remember if that's what they said, but that's basically what ends up happening. So they tell him he needs to figure out something that his father did, and what he ends up getting this model town that his father had for the Stark Expo, and he realizes that his father has basically discovered a new element, and so he builds a particle accelerator in his house and synthesizes this element, and lo and behold, it can be used as a replacement for palladium. So he puts it in his thing in his chest, and he's no longer dying. So meanwhile, Hammer has shown up at the Stark Expo with these drones, which Venko built for him. Instead, he built him drones instead of suits. And he tells Hammer that they'll only be able to salute; they won't be ready for anything else. So he shows up with all these drones, and he shows up with the War Machine, the newly decked out War Machine suit that Colonel Rhodes is wearing. So this is at Stark's Expo, and everyone's cheering him on. And meanwhile, Stark has just finally finished his thing, and he's realized that Venko has escaped, I think. So he flies to the Stark Expo, and he confronts Hammer, and just as he does that, Venko hacks into Colonel Rhodes' suit, and then hacks into the drones that he built, and he basically starts firing into the crowd with these drones, which, surprise, surprise, they actually can fly and shoot. And so Colonel Rhodes, so the War Machine and a bunch of the drones start chasing Tony around, and he manages to basically lose and or destroy most of them, except for War Machine. Meanwhile, Black Widow, who has been working for Tony's company this whole time, has went to the facility where Ivan is and taken down all the guards. And once she does that, she's able to hack into the War Machine chute and reset it, so it's now not under Venko's control anymore. So now Iron Man and War Machine then basically fight off the remainder of these drones, and they think they're done. But then Venko shows up in his own suit, and he has more of these whips, more of the electronic whips that we mentioned before. So then Iron Man and War Machine fight Venko, and they defeat him. And yeah, I mean, that's basically the end of the movie.
Yep.
There were a few key points.
Yeah, tell me what I missed.
In there. There was when Nick Fury talks to Tony Stark, there's a very strong implication in their conversation that he added some sort of software that allowed Colonel Rhodes to take the suits, likely because he wanted him to take over as Iron Man when he assumed he would die.
Oh, yes. So, sorry, just to clarify what you're saying, that Tony Stark basically allowed Colonel Rhodes to take the suit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he wanted to have a successor because he thought he was dying, which he was dying, but yeah.
Also,
Okay,
the new element he synthesized was vibranium,
right.
which they discuss more in Captain America after that.
It's his shield, right?
Yeah.
Yes, his shield's made of vibranium.
Also, just a very minor point. They have Colonel Rhodes fire one of the weapons that Justin Hammer bragged about adding to the suit at
Yes.
Ivan Vanko, and it fails.
And it just fell into the
And they
water.
use that to make fun of Justin Hammer, but War Machine actually used that weapon completely wrong. It's a high velocity kinetic energy projectile, which means that he needed to go very far away and fire it and allow it to build up a large amount of kinetic energy to be able to pierce any armor and hit with any reasonable amount of energy. And he shot it from like 10 feet away, where it obviously didn't do anything.
Right. Thank you for that correction. How recently have you seen this movie?
It was, I don't know, 4 years ago maybe?
Wow, you have a very good memory for it being that long. Anyway, so that's basically the movie. Well, it took a while to explain, but I don't know what I did here. We're good. So did you want to tell me what your impressions were of this movie?
Yeah, first of all, after seeing him complete his character arc, coming back to this version of Tony Stark, he is super annoying. He's like the worst. I mean, like, in kind of a good way, right? Because you like him, but also, he's just terrible.
Tony's such a weird character because, like, for almost the entirety of the MCU, except for like the very end, he's just like an asshole,
Yeah.
and you still like him for some reason. Like, or
Because
at least I do.
He's a very effective asshole.
Yes.
He's very
He earns how bad he is.
right. He's like always right.
Yes. So, but having seen the conclusion of his spoilers, the conclusion of his time in the MCU and how he became more likable and less terrible. It was a little jarring to go back to the point where he was like, peak Tony Stark.
Right.
The other thing I found incredibly annoying about this movie was the fact that Justin Hammer would call Stark Anthony. I did not like that at all. That's very upsetting to me. And I'm not really sure why, but that's how it is.
Yeah. So the science of this movie actually annoyed me a little bit. I'm usually not the type of person that's annoyed by that, like by the implausibility of it.
Yeah.
It was kind of annoying to me in this movie. But
Anything in particular?
a couple things, like, okay, these whips that this guy made can somehow just like slice through cars like lightsabers.
Right.
Not sure how that's supposed to make any sense.
But at the same time, he just like wraps up Iron Man, and then Iron Man
Right.
keeps
right,
fighting back.
He somehow, he can like hit the Iron Man suits and it doesn't slice through that.
So like that's kind of fair. Like
that makes no
I'll
sense to
accept
me.
that because F1 cars are not like high strength. They're like lightweight, and well, I mean they're high strength, right? But they're not like armor plated or something like that.
Right, but it just doesn't make sense to me that he should be able to cut clean through it.
Yeah, there was
Like a
there was
lightsaber.
some power balancing going on
Right.
during the use of those things.
Yeah. Also, like the whole new element thing, like, it just like elements are pretty like
Yeah, that-
elementary to understand. Like, you just put atoms in a nucleus. Like
Yeah.
when he says he discovered a new element, I don't really know what they mean by that.
Oh,
Did he discover a stable form? Did he not try hundreds? He's a supercomputer. I'm sure he could try hundreds of different combinations of protons and neutrons. I don't know how his dad suddenly discovered this. And also, when he creates the particle accelerator and he has to like turn the beam to be like point at the metal or whatever, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Like,
I
why
don't
didn't-
think that was a particle accelerator.
What is it then?
It seemed like some kind of laser, right? Because he used a
Right.
prism to change the.
But it was like circular, like a particle accelerator, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm just.
I feel like they tried to make it like a particle accelerator, but then they wanted to show the particle beam, and then also somehow the particle beam was like destroying things.
Well,
Regardless,
to be fair, if you did direct the proton beam from like the Large Hadron Collider at something, I do
that's
think
pretty
it would be
legit.
sufficiently destroyed.
Yes. Also,
Interesting.
the fact
I
that
didn't actually know that.
he shot a thing with a high energy beam is a pretty accurate way of synthesizing new things.
Well, that's okay.
I mean,
that's fair.
maybe not like heavier atoms.
What I actually brought
but
the reason I actually brought this up is because I didn't understand why he didn't just point it at the thing in the first place. Like, why did he start
That
with it pointed
is-
away from it and then turn it, destroying like half of the room?
almost definitely, yeah, just movie things. There's no reason.
Anyway,
yeah.
those were actually not. I kind of made just a big deal of those, but it was not actually that big of a deal to me. Just minorly annoying.
Right. It was
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, not ruining the movie or anything.
Right. I did really like. I don't know, the Iron Man movies, just like the comedy that they have, I do like.
Yeah.
Like the wry, sarcastic humor.
Right. Just what they do with Tony and Iron Man as a character is.
Also, they did a really good job making Hammer really unlikable. He was very unlikable.
I mean, but he was just unlikable. I feel like he should have been a normal person.
What do you mean?
Because he was he's like a CEO or whatever of this big rival company, and you're not like he was just a horrible person.
Entire personality was annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, like, you want it to be a pretty straightforward, like, here's the good guys, here's the bad guys.
Right.
And I'm not saying it doesn't work for the movie, but, like, he had no, like, depth at all.
Right.
He was just, like, this dude
Right.
who happened to be in the position that he needed to be in for
Right.
it to work for the movie.
And I think
And
it's-
he was also a huge jerk.
Right. I think the thing was that he wasn't the main bad guy. Like they gave.
Yeah. Venko was more complex,
Right.
and that was good.
Yeah, that was. I think he was the main.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that.
Right. It's a real shame that he never got his bird.
Yeah.
He's got some other bird. I was a little worried for that other bird, that Venko was gonna just be like angry and kill it or something. I wanted that bird to live, and it lived.
Right.
They became friends.
We don't know what happened to the bird after he put on his Iron Man suit, fought Iron Man, and died.
They did. The bird lived a long, happy life.
I bet
Obviously.
S.H.I.E.L.D. executed the bird for treason.
That's impossible. They can't kill birds. Especially not when it would be sad. Because the bird didn't do anything wrong. Unless it did. I don't know. You didn't watch the whole movie about the bird. Maybe it was a bad bird.
He was whispering dark thoughts into Ivan's ear. That's why he was...
Yeah, maybe
On a
Venko
purpose.
was just this nice guy, and then like the bird kept getting him drunk and yelling about, I don't know, birds are
dicks.
Yeah, maybe it was a bad bird. I don't know.
That's the real enemy.
We need to see that spin-off movie now that the huge MCU storyline has finished up. They're I don't know what they're doing next. I know there's like
The
more
next one
movies
is
coming.
Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah, there's Spider-Man, there's Guardians of the Galaxy coming, but like, I mean, big picture. Are they
Right.
doing another
Giant arc.
giant arc?
Tend to doubt it, but I mean, it's just a giant money-making machine.
Yeah,
at this
I mean,
point,
they're
so
they're
I don't
just
know.
Are they
printing
still-
money
do they
by
s-
coming out with movies.
Do they still have a plan for 3 movies a year for the foreseeable future?
I don't know.
That's a huge plan. Has that been what they're doing?
Yeah, they've been releasing 3 movies a year.
Wow, I've not been paying attention to the absolute volume of movies that this company has been producing. That's incredible.
I mean, they've used quite a few movies to, go through the whole.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. And thinking about it, of course they've been making 3 movies a year, but that's still, just hearing that seems pretty crazy, and it is kind of crazy, but yeah, they did it.
All right, so anything else about Iron Man 2 before we?
I do, yeah, in the original, like, Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, and, like, to a lesser extent, in my opinion, as the movies go on, it's so satisfying to watch him put on the Iron Man suits.
Yes.
So, like, in this movie, it's all super mechanical,
Right.
and, like, it's futuristic, but it's not just, like, magical,
Right.
Like, I feel like
it was in Infinity War.
in Infinity War, and I don't know, even Iron Man 3 was starting to stretch the boundaries a little bit,
Right.
I think, but this one, it was like he's got 3 rope, like that scene at the beginning, where he's like
Right, where he
taking
flies
off
in
the
and
suit
then-
actually.
Yeah, right.
But it's like he's spinning around on this platform while robotic arms are basically unhooking
Completely
everything.
disassembling the
It's
suit,
it's a disassembly. It's not just like the thing melts away into all of these nanobots or whatever.
Right.
Like the technology might be a little more primitive, but I think it's way cooler to watch.
I agree. Although, yeah, I feel like I actually thought it was kind of weird how in the first one as soon as he built the suit, he already had this like high-tech like thing that would disassemble the suit and reassemble and disassemble the suit for him.
Well, maybe a mere mortal like yourself would not have thought about it before putting
Yeah,
it
I
on,
guess
but
not.
clearly
I would
Tony Stark.
I would imagine that those mechanisms were the same things that actually assembled the suit the first time.
Right. You just need to reverse the. If you do it well, it really should.
So for him to have produced a suit, he needed to be able to assemble it.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, I agree. I really like. I actually really liked the case in this movie.
The case one was good, and that was a borderline like, I don't believe that could actually happen, but still it was really cool
Yeah, I
just to
don't-
watch.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
So,
It was cool to watch. I agree that it's kind
Yeah.
of plausible.
right. I think the suits that were still kind of like, wow, that's kind of like almost real. Those were the best.
Mhm.
And then as it gets just more crazy, it's still a cool character, and you're like, wow, that's impressive. But you're like, but it's totally CGI, of course.
Right.
You're not like, you know.
I don't know. I feel like it was like an entertaining movie. It just lacked some substance. Like, there were no real like twists. I mean, it was pretty. You could pretty much predict what was happening the whole time.
Yeah.
And there were, I don't know. I just feel like there was more substance to the Big Short, which we watched, and this one was just kind of like, guy is an asshole. Guy gets knocked down a few pegs. Guy becomes better and defeats his enemy in the end.
It's kind of weird that you think of it like that after having described The Big Short as not really having a plot, whereas this is
Right.
like super involved plot, like beginning to end. There's not a twist per se, but there's lots of
I feel like-
developing.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know why I think it's worse.
Yeah,
There were definitely more elements to the plot than in the other movie we talked about.
I think-
in the Big Short, I definitely would not have been able to like predict at any point what was going to happen next.
yeah,
Like even in the beginning, I mean, I guess maybe you can say in the beginning, you can say, okay, I know that this guy is right and that the housing market will collapse,
yeah,
and presumably he's going to make buckets of money on that.
right.
But like, other than that, like, I don't really know. That was actually the same with Endgame. I was like going in, I was like, all right, pretty much all I know is that they're gonna get the Infinity Stones and snap everyone back into existence.
Right,
But I don't really know aside from that what's gonna happen.
right.
So-
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's my. Do you have an opinion on that?
On the substance of Iron Man 2,
Yeah.
I think at that point, I'm sure that movie was just a piece in a much larger story. But I think this one, more so than some of the later movies, still felt like an individual movie.
Right.
Like Infinity War is just 100% a piece of the bigger story.
Right.
Kind of all the Avengers, really, because it's like the coming together of all of these storylines that have been built up. I think this, you know, it might not seem like much in terms of like subverting your expectations about what's going on and all of these things being pretty straightforward, but I just don't knock it for that. I think
Right,
that's fine.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. It's just we pick up with his character. He's kind of where you would expect. He grows a little bit throughout the movie and ends up in a better place at the end, and also there was a lot of crazy action scenes. I actually didn't think there were as many like super impressive Iron Man technology things being shown off in this movie as compared to the first one.
Right.
Maybe I'm remembering the first movie in more positive a light because I haven't seen it in a while, really. But like, I feel like the little gimmicks of the suit were kind of shown off more in the original one as compared to this one.
Right. No, you're definitely right.
And I
about
think
that. I think that's somewhat to do with the fact that the suit like increased the rate at which he was dying, he kind of tried to avoid wearing it.
That's true.
So like he wore it during the fight with the guy.
Yeah.
And he wore it during the fight with Rhodes, and then he wore it at the end.
And at the party.
And well, yeah, that's what I mean. The fight with Rhodes was
Oh, okay.
the party.
Yeah, sure.
That's the same scene.
Okay.
But yeah, so like in the first one, like the movie's basically about the suit, right? Like
Yeah,
show him
yeah.
developing the suit. They show him using the suit. Like basically from the end of the exposition where he escapes the prison
Right.
up until the end, it's all about the suit.
Right.
This one's more about him as a character and things happening to him. So yeah.
I think this is maybe the last. Well, Iron Man 1's maybe really the only movie where he shows him, just fighting people with guns.
Yeah.
Well, that's because
He's got gimmicks like his own guns and little missiles,
Right.
but when he's fighting aliens, he's just shooting them all with energy blasts.
I mean, the thing is, guns are basically useless against his suit, so...
Right. Yeah. You when you raise the stakes, you gotta stick with just the the best bits. I don't know, but
That's actually another thing with Captain America, I feel like, is... Okay, here's some major Endgame spoilers.
yeah.
But when he... Like he's basically useless in the final battle until
Right.
he picks up Mjolnir.
Right.
Because
He's literally
just a
just
guy
a guy.
An above average strength guy.
Right.
It's basically what he is.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting, like the power level differences between the characters,
right.
and how you can like make them all, on a level playing field in these fight
Right.
scenes and stuff. So,
Alright, did you have anything else you want to throw a rating on here?
I don't know. We can probably wrap this up.
Alright, out of
It's-
5, what do you got?
Out of 5, I'd say 4. I was thoroughly entertained throughout. Like I said, there were a couple of like annoyances that I had, but that's not really issues with the movie. It's more just like me recognizing where it fits in now.
Right.
But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I would have liked to see more of the like Iron Man tech, but that's kind of
Right.
not the plot's fault, really.
Right.
It's just how it is.
Personally, I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
I think if I were a movie critic, I would have a much better idea of explaining what I'm kind of missing.
Yeah.
But I'm not a movie critic, so I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of, nothing about this movie stood out to me as being
Okay.
except. So I was, it was entertaining to spend 2 hours watching it, but nothing particularly great. So 3. So I guess that gives it a 7 out of 10.
All right.
The
So
Alex and Alex score.
if we have to recommend a movie from this podcast, it appears to be The Big Short for
Here's
the
been Big Short by
7.5.
half a point.
Yeah.
But both movies were good movies.
Yep.
All right. Did we want to end the podcast here, or did we want to review a product?
Shelby, do you have any ideas for product reviewing?
Just like anything? Or
I
what?
mean,
Sure, something that we would know
ideally,
about.
We've both used it.
Oh,
Something that we
okay.
could like reasonably talk about.
Okay, so something that you
Unless you want to host a segment, do your own talking.
I think not for right now, but maybe another time.
Okay. A
I'm
possible
kinda
guest
tired.
host.
Yeah, possible guest host.
So, is that a no to a product then?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
I guess I don't know.
So while Shelby's thinking, we can briefly
let's just do that. That sounds good.
So, I'm guessing most people won't be familiar with this game, so let me explain it. So, basically you have pieces that are mirrors, and your goal is to move them around and rotate them such that when you shine a laser, it hits a certain piece of your opponent's. So more in depth. So you have pyramids, which basically they can take a laser in at either of two sides. So the board itself is just a square grid, and the pieces just move around that. And so the pyramids can take the laser in from either of two sides and reflect it at a 90-degree angle at the other side. And if they get hit by the laser on one of their non-reflecting sides, then they're removed from the board. And then there's scarabs, which take a laser from any direction and reflect it 90 degrees. So it's kind of like the pyramid, but both sides. So it can't be removed. And the scarab actually has an ability where it can swap places with any pyramid that it's next to. There's these Anubis pieces, which are like guards. So basically they don't actually reflect at all. They're just impervious to being removed if they're shot from the front. But if they're shot from the sides or back, they are removed. And then there's the actual pharaoh itself, which is the piece you're trying to defend / attack your opponent's pharaoh. And it's just, if it gets hit, you lose, or you win if it's your opponent's. And so basically, you start with some initial board setup, and then each turn you can either move a piece one space or rotate a piece.
90 degrees.
90 degrees, and then you fire the laser, and whatever. If it hits something, if it hits a pyramid on the side, non-reflecting side, then it's removed from the game. If it hits a pharaoh, you win. Yeah, that's basically it. So, do you want to say anything about it?
We played, I think, 7 games, if I remember right.
Something like that.
I think every single one of them ended with one of us just making a stupid mistake, and then the other person...
Yeah, neither of us ever, really outsmarted the other person to win the game.
Yeah. It's definitely got the potential for, experienced players to do that, I think. I could see situations where, kind of like in chess, you have a fork where you could do 2 different actions and both of them would be bad.
Right.
I don't think we ever got to anything that sophisticated, really.
Right.
We were just screwing up, and then...
I feel like... So in the last game, you put your scarab right in front of your pharaoh.
Right.
And it was flanked on either side by the Anubises.
Yeah,
It's a very strong defensive position. And the entire game, I was on the attack. And it's just very difficult to... I had a 2-piece advantage, I think.
You had a 3-piece advantage. I don't think I ever took one of your mirrors.
And it's just once you do that, I basically have to get set up with 2 points of attack. And that's very difficult to do while still not defending my own thing. And basically what ended up happening is I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to set up this attack, and you just shot my pharaoh with the laser. And actually I think it's pretty interesting about this game is that it's much easier than chess to accidentally lose, not pay attention and have your opponent just win the game.
But on the other hand, you can see exactly what's going to happen, right? It's so easy to mentally trace the laser beam. It's pretty...
Right, but
it's pretty clear what's about to happen, but the strategy is just as hidden as it is in chess. Moves don't necessarily completely reveal anything.
Right, and the thing is, I feel like in chess, you can it's much easier to see what pieces are in danger of taking your pieces and or attacking your king.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, it's a piece on the complete opposite side of the board, nowhere near your pharaoh is moved, and then you just lose the game because a whole bunch bunch of other chain reflections happen.
Right. You've got to be thinking about lots of possible moves to come up with a defense, because I found myself, I don't know what you were thinking, we didn't actually like discuss it after the games, but I found myself in situations pretty frequently where I knew what was coming, but I didn't want to impulsively just make a move to stop it, because that could open up something else.
Right, I agree.
And in fact, I actually did do that to lose one of the games. I saw a move that was coming. I made a step to prevent one thing, but just totally missed an obvious threat in a different direction and lost.
Right. I think I know what game you're talking about, too.
Yeah.
And, I agree with that. And I feel like since we're just not good players, the game's basically just a reactionary game where, someone makes a move that threatens the other person's piece, and then the other person does something to thwart that.
Right.
And if you're not in immediate danger, you're just trying to remove your opponent's pieces. And I honestly feel like there's 3 different starting configurations that you can do.
Right.
We only did 2 of them. But I feel like they are very, you start out with half your pieces on your opponent's side of the board.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get into a position where you can actually threaten your opponent's pieces. It takes several moves.
Right.
To be in any threatening position.
And I found it difficult when making those moves to split between defending and attacking.
Exactly.
Right. If something's going on, you've got to make an immediate reaction to it, and then you are making no more progress.
Right. I feel like that was embodied very well in our last game.
Yeah.
Where basically the whole game was me attacking your pieces and you trying to, preserve your pieces until you just won.
One slip up, and then
one slip up and I just lose.
Right.
Which is frustrating, but I feel like it would enrich the strategy of the game that you can do that.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that's a flaw of the game. I think that's a flaw of our limited knowledge about the game.
I feel like one restrictive aspect of the game is that you can only move one space or rotate one quarter turn. In chess, I feel like you can make much more progress.
Right.
By because you can move pieces multiple spaces. But in this game, it's if I won, if once you put your scarab in front of your king, your pharaoh, I basically had to move 3 spaces in order to get in any position that I might be able to, shine it on your pharaoh.
Right.
And in the meantime, I had to defend my own pieces and try and remove your other pieces that were in my way.
Right.
So it's just frustrating that I have to make so many moves and I can only move one space at a time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I do think it's a well-designed game in that the strategy can be very complex.
Yes.
I can totally see an elite level of player in this game.
Right. Yeah.
Like chess.
Yeah, I agree. It would be interesting to find the community of Laser Cats players.
Right. Actually, I was just thinking about this. So, do you remember in the setup that we played in the last few games how your scarab is right next to your Anubis is?
Yeah.
So I was like, this is such a dumb placement for this because it's just out of the way of everything else.
Yeah.
But then I remembered that you can actually, I remember just now that you can turn your Sphinx. So if you turned your Sphinx, it would actually put those scarabs in play. Anyway, that was just a random thought that
as long as you get your pharaoh and everything.
The thing is, it's actually your opponent's scarab who you would put in play by doing that.
Right.
Which is basically useless because they can just move it, and then you would be shooting your own Anubis.
Yeah, it's a very tricky. You know, it's tough to find an advantage. Frequently, I was using my mirrors and your mirrors as part of my plan.
Yeah, I actually think that's pretty cool.
It is really cool, but it's
Okay.
very difficult to come up with long-term plans
Right.
because you could just move your mirror, and then
Right.
everything I just spent 10 turns moving one square at a time for is ruined.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's very true. I remember there was one point where I was like trying to figure out how to remove one of your pieces, and I'm like, okay, I move this piece here, and then I move this piece here, and then rotate it, and then I can shine this whole thing, and then I was like, wait, one of these is yours, which means if you saw it in advance, you could just move that guy, and then my
Yeah.
whole plan would be ruined.
yeah,
It's like, yeah. So,
but yeah, I think that's a good feature.
yeah, I agree.
But just adding layers to the game. All right, do you have any other comments?
I have no other comments.
All right, let's have a number.
All right, here we go. For me, I give it a 4 out of 5. I think the only thing holding it back from being a 5 out of 5 is that I'm bad at it, and also the fact that the slow moving pieces that I mentioned, it just takes forever to do anything.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pretty much exactly agree with you. 4 out of 5 because the beginning of the game, it's a bit my fault, but I'm kind of clueless about what to do, and
Right.
the slow pace makes it difficult to generate a plan. It seems in order for you to get to any high level of play, you need to be really experienced because there's just so
Right.
many possibilities. I think the pace really gets in the way at the beginning because there's no quick ideas that we can attempt. It's just kind of a slow grind.
Right.
So
So 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5
All
and
right,
4 out of
so
5.
We got an 8 out of 10 for Laser Cat 2.0.
So if you want to watch a movie, play Laser Cat.
All right. So is that it for our podcast?
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point.
All right.
If we think of anything else, we'll come back with episode 8, part 3. But probably we'll just stop talking for a while because we've been talking for a while.
All right. I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this has been Joel. Why did you say Joel?
Because I wasn't sure whether you were going to say
In 2
Joel or
miles,
Alex.
take exit 16 toward Memphis Road.
Huh?
I said I'm going to say Joel. Are you ready? I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And this has been
Joel.